oh my gosh, it's been so bad, are just washing away negativity and strengthens you. So really appreciate that we can hold these conversations now. They're so important for all of us. And certainly the collaborative staff is really appreciative to get to see you all every day during the week for our daily Zoom chats. A reminder for everyone that just joined in, just always to please say hello and good morning in the chat. We're also recording these sessions. They all are archived, and you will receive weekly digests of these great content-rich conversations every week. Now that we do thematic conversations every day, it's sort of like going to a members meeting, a mini members meeting or seminar every day now. And we really want more of these conversations to be led by you all as well. So please always check in with Tracey if you've got some great ideas. But as you saw from this week's message, we've got a sneak peek of what's coming up each day this week. So today, as you know, is Monday, and it's the day that we dedicate to our friends from the Commission and from DCPS to give us a bit of a check-in on how things are going in their camps, and to also answer any questions that we may have as we also brainstorm and continue to pivot our work during these really unusual times. So without further ado, I will hand the mic over to Mr. David Markey and say good morning, David, and how are you doing?
Things are going well. You know, we're trucking along at the Commission, trying to be in the moment and responsive to what's happening, but at the same time, trying to plan forward. I guess my news for the week is I'm trying to, this is the week that interim reports are due for the majority of our grants. Many organizations have already gotten their interim reports in. They have been approved. Second invoices have been solicited. So we're trying to move money out the door as quickly as possible. So those of you who have yet to submit interim reports, if you have any challenges whatsoever, please reach out to me. And I'm happy to help navigate folks through that process, because I know cash flow is really important at this time, particularly for those organizations that rely on income coming in the door. So yeah, please reach out to myself or any of the grant managers, and we're happy to move that process forward for you. And that's really it all right now. Thank you.
Thanks, David. I do know we're going to, for those of us that are on the call, maybe if you want to just do a thumbs up, that are also DAHI grantees. That's the field trip, experiential field trip program grantees. Yeah, we have a couple on right now. I know you all have also been working on your reports. And just to share and a message that we also, with intentionality, put forward last week, just to remind all of the DAHI field trip grantees that the collaborative works with, that the collaborative has accelerated its reporting, assessment, survey reporting process. This is something that normally gets completed by the end of the school year. And we, knowing a lot of the uncertainties ahead, and for those that have already had the majority of their field trips, we are accelerating our process of getting as much data as possible to you. And you all received a message last week just reminding you that we are accelerating the process, and also giving you links to your raw data, which is something you always can access anytime, as you know. And then just a reminder to make sure you please forward those to your development teams if you're not the ones that are working on the grant reports with David, or excuse me, for the Commission. So the collaborative is actually in the process of putting our interim report together for our general operating support grant. We actually I feel really late to the game on this one, but we will get it in before Friday for sure. because we very much need and appreciate that that second invoice payment from the commission. That's for our general operating service grant. So David, question for you that had come up from someone, I think, in the chat. Is there anything that you can share about the CARES Act and how that's coming down at the state level?
David, you were muted, so I just unmuted you, I think.
Oh.
Nope.
Okay.
There we go.
Okay.
So I really don't have very much more information than you. You know, I know it sounds like a lot of money, that 40% of the $75 million coming from the NEA is going to the states and territories. It is going to 53 entities. And my understanding that it will be dispersed proportionate to our original, each state arts agency's original NEA grant. I know that there will be that pot of money that will determine how it's split up. But there are also opportunities. There's several of organizations, more than several organizations in the city that are eligible to apply directly to the NEA because they are previous recipients. So, and that's also another route that folks can take to make sure that they have access to these funds.
Yeah, thanks for sharing, David. Yeah, and if anyone, oh, I'm sorry, keep going.
No,
oh.
We'll share more as we have it. So.
Thank you. And in fact, the commission, for those of you, you should all be on their email list, but the commission did release a really informative message this morning about artist resources and included some of this information, as well as other relief efforts that are out there that you may, as individuals or as organizations, be eligible to apply for. Some of the ones that we know that we've already applied for as a nonprofit small business, and we're waiting to hear back, is the DC Small Business Association grant that's also for individual artists. That was due now 2 weeks ago. Oh my gosh, time is zooming by here. It's so strange. As well as the Greater Washington Community Foundation has an emergency grant that you could request up to $100,000 as an organization for emergency funding. They have paused accepting more applications at this time, but I think they're going to be reopening that. At least that was the understanding from the email message that we had received. The collaborative had put a request in for that. Also, for those of you that are the development or the folks that go after the funding, or you may want to also just circle back with your team, there is a federal SBA payroll loan, which if you keep 90%, retain 90% of your team, that loan actually is waived and basically becomes like a grant. And that is something that we know at the collaborative, we're working with our bank to get that process moving forward. But other than that, at this point, we haven't heard from many of the private foundations just yet if they're going to have emergency dollars available. I know that they're all making those assessments, like our friends at KFRITS are continuing to monitor the situation and look at where they may be. So we'll also share, yes, I'm sorry, go ahead, David.
Okay. So I know the Community Foundation, they had reached out to the Washington Regional Association of Grantmakers, and there are a lot of funders in that cohort. And so I think a lot of funders are working through the Community Foundation rather than a new grant program themselves or a relief program. So you may find dollars are being funneled to the Community Foundation. Now the thing about that is that it has a much broader scope beyond the arts. I'm a member of a working group that is the Children, Youth, and Families Working Group, so there are funders in there that are interested in education and health and so on. But they're acting as sort of a nexus for a repository for funding from other foundations.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that, David. And Rag, it's it's great to hear that RAG is coming together that way, and it makes sense that it would go through the Community Foundation as well. So again, I believe those grants, when they were announced, they were rolling weekly application opportunities. I know that they have frozen that at this time just to go through all of the applications they've already received. But my understanding from the message that we received as an applicant was that that would be opening up again. But just check out the Greater Washington Community Foundation's website for any updates there. And that's pretty much what we know at this point. And David had mentioned the NEA funding distribution, and we appreciate whatever the commission decides is the most equitable and fair way to distribute that opportunity that will come down to the state level through that 40% distribution. If anyone's organization had received a grant from fiscal year or grant year 17 to present to 20, you are eligible to apply for emergency funding directly through the NEA. So if anyone believes that their organization is in that position, they should take a look, because the first piece of that application, there are two parts, as many of you who've filled out NEA applications know, there are two parts. The first part is due on April 22nd. So that is all that I know at this point. If anyone else has heard of any other interesting grant opportunities, we've talked mostly about for organizations, but again, if you look at the email message that the commission put out this morning, it also shares some resources for individual artists as well. No, okay. Okay, so let's switch gears to talk a little bit about what's happening at DCPS and the resources that we as the collaborative and our membership are providing to help support DCPS Arts team. And I know that Mary is on. There she is. Hi, Mary. Good morning.
Good morning, everyone. It's great to see your faces. And thank you for being here. Thank you to the collaborative for hosting this again. These are always so wonderful and fruitful with information. So we don't have a lot of updates ourselves, I hate to say, but we are chugging along with our curriculum. We just finished writing weeks 6 and 7. The students are on starting week 4. So this will be officially the first week of the videos being shown as well on DCTV and DCPS YouTube. They launched it last week, but it was just a soft launch with some of the Fun with Phonics videos. So it wasn't directly lining up with the curriculum last week, whereas this week it directly lines up. So you'll get to see some of the wonderful pieces that were made by our teachers. Predominantly a couple of partners helped out, but mostly teachers last week, since it was like a 4-day turnaround on those videos for both weeks 4 and 5. And we're very proud of them and excited that we can offer that for the kids. Moving forward, we are still working with music to create whatever we can with no instruments at home. However, we did get a really wonderful grant from Mr. Holland's Opus Foundation for 200 keyboards to go directly to our students. So we had a sign up from our teachers on our Friday town hall with our teachers on which ones would be willing to own that, because the keyboards will technically be DCPS owned. So then the teachers have to facilitate all of that that goes along with it. And we were very excited that we had more teachers sign up than we have keyboards. So we're working through the process of that. And then, even the logistics of when we get them back, how do we ensure they're cleaned properly, and the loaning program logistics. But we had put in a proposal for visual art supplies, but unfortunately that budget ran out before our proposal even had a chance to be approved. So if anyone has supports on that, we are definitely open to hearing any ways that we can do that. Unfortunately, we don't have funds for it, so it would have to be an outside partner, like maybe a Crayola or something. I know they're doing some work, but they're charging. So that's really where we are with need, is getting supplies to the students. And then definitely some supports on the videos would be appreciated. I know Karen Brown has already been doing some videos for us. And WPA has been wonderful at getting lots of the music performers involved too. And now we're just waiting on final word from the mayor and the chancellor to see, you know, are we going back to school in 2 weeks? Are we out for the rest of the year? We're kind of in limbo with the rest of you.
Thanks, Mary, for the update. And just to echo Terry in the comments, you all are doing amazing work. Thank you so much. I know it's just mind-boggling how much you've had to pivot. We've all pivoted, but you truly have had to pivot and continue to be doing this with so much uncertainty. So let's all give a round of applause to our friends at DCPS. I'm trying to do the clap click if you have your yay.
Thank you, everyone. That's very kind.
I think that there's some good questions that have come up. Let's see, just as far as who should folks contact to help support the DCPS videos?
You can contact me directly, and then I can funnel you to our music team or our visual arts team. We are not doing any dance or theater videos that will go on DCTV at this time. However, we are looking at doing some family engagement videos that would be sort of not necessarily directly linked to our units, but would be founded in those basic core framework of arts learning that would be just deeper engagement for families. So if they wanted to do dance lessons at home, or if they wanted to do some kind of like maybe emotional monologue back and forth that's like a safe way of parents connecting to their students and what they're going through right now, you know, anything to that effect, we're definitely looking into and open to that outside of the visual arts and music realm.
Yeah.
And we have, just Mary, just hopping in real quick, we do have dance and theater resources on our database as well. And if that's something that teachers are interested in, or you get questions from parents about, I mean, you can point them in that direction. That we do have dance lessons that are downloadable, printout, and then we also have theater lessons that are, you know, print out and downloadable as well. Mary, quick question too. I put it in the chat, but you might not have seen it. Are DCPS students getting all getting laptops or devices, or is that a rumor, or is that something that is true?
So it was just under 17,000 devices that were earmarked for the ELI initiative, that 1-to-1 for grades 3, 6, and 9. However, those were then changed. Instead of going just to grades 3, 6, and 9, they were put up as loaners for students who needed a device. So whether you didn't have anything at home, or whether you have 4 kids in your family and only 1 device and you need more, that was there for any family to borrow from DCPS. And then there was also the additional fund to get hotspots for anyone who needed it. And then on top of that, there was several hundred e-readers for the little guys, like the pre-K through 2nd. They had the e-readers, which is basically a tablet. It does, you know, the basic functions of going online. You can read books through it, that sort of thing. And now there's an additional fund of looking into getting Chromebooks for anyone that is needing. So it's sort of going tiered out at a time. So it was first high school got all those loaners, and then K through 8, and then pre-K, and then now they're looking into the Chromebook to make sure everybody is able to. Now, of course, there's no way to really ensure every single student has it, because there are students who maybe can't get to the schools, or are not getting the information for whatever reason about these technology access points. You know, we know that from looking at the numbers that it's recently about 10,000 students a day are getting the free meals at school. So that is hitting 1/5 of our students that are actively going to the community sites to get food. And hopefully those students are also getting the information as well about all of the technology access points.
Awesome. Thank you for clarifying that. Yeah, I had someone reach out to me and asking like what type of device schools were getting, if all students were getting it. And so Are they Chromebooks, the one-to-one devices, or are they just laptops, just like general laptops?
They are the, and Kent, you probably know this better than I do, but I think they're the Lenovo Flip ones. Is that right, Kent?
Yeah, or I thought they're like the Microsoft Surface type.
That's what it is.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
Microsoft Surface. And with the e-readers, I actually had a question. Yeah, I think they're still trying to get that in place, but what's amazing to me is, yes, they're limited, but if there's a way, I don't know how they're going to arrange for kids to maybe just get books for free or very cheap, in addition just to having access, because that'd be an amazing thing. You're quite possibly putting in the hands of kids something they can read on their own, or with their family members, 10, 20, 100 books over the course of the summer or more, depending on how available those books are.
Yeah, I don't know if everyone saw the Washington Post article this morning about what the future of education, where every school district seems to be doing something completely different, whether they're going really late in the school year and then starting really early next year, so it's almost year round, or whether they're just sort of saying, well, we're done for the year, this distance learning is not really doing much, so we'll just catch up next year. It seems to be everyone's really all over the place, and I would imagine that's probably a large part of what the mayor and the chancellor are analyzing right now to decide what is going to be the best for the DCPS students, including looking at, are we really encouraging them to do a lot of reading this summer to help catch up, or what it may be.
One other thought, Mary, was that I don't know if they're discussing it within DCPS, is that I'm sure there are certain teachers, and there may be a lot, who might want to go through the summer, maybe not just with their classes, but just kind of continue programs, maybe just on a weekly basis, whatever, to continue that summer learning and connection, because I think that is going to be important to kind of keep that going and prevent the fallback that we're all afraid of.
I agree.
I know that's such a huge concern. I think when we think about all of the initial pivoting that we had to do, now we're talking about what this year looks like going into next year, this summer, so much uncertainty. And maybe there'll be a little more clarity in the next week, right? Or at least 2 weeks, as to what the rest of the year at least looks like. But the collaborative had a really interesting conversation. As you guys know, Fridays are now dedicated to equity and access. And it was a really powerful conversation around students of all learning disabilities, students and educators, special education educators, and just the challenges, even if students are equipped with technology, what does that really look like? And I don't know if you've had any, if you would have anything, Mary, that the arts team could share about that. But it was a really robust conversation. I know that Clarissa is not on right now to give a recap, but for those that weren't participating, but maybe if there's anything that you could share, how the arts could help and be supportive to some of these special education teachers who are very concerned about their students just dropping off, and the parents not being able to provide the same level of education that they've had during the school year.
Yeah, it's been a battle for us too, because everything that we write, we constantly have to think about the many factors of trying to reach every student, whether it's digital access or learning access. For the arts, we are thankful that a lot of our work is more engaging for students on a variety of abilities. So for us, it's been a little bit easier. However, we have been working with, from River Terrace as well, Jared Sherrar is the visual arts teacher there. And he's also a drama therapist, which is amazing because he's able to give us sort of a multi-tiered lens and when we create our work. And he's been helping us to edit our work, along with the fact that we have Lindsay Vance on our team, who's an art therapist too. But looking at how can we help the students not only ensure that everything that we're creating is accessible, but then also going a little deeper into looking at what do they really need emotionally right now to help work through what they're going through, but also doing it on a safe lens where it's not bringing up something that shouldn't be brought up to a teacher or a parent who's not a therapist, that we're finding the right way of doing an expressive version of it versus true therapy.
Thanks for sharing that. We will continue to have that conversation. I'm not sure if it'll be this Friday's conversation, but we will continue to address that because it is something that will be an ongoing challenge for us, even when we know what our new norm is and if and when our new school year, how that looks and how it starts up, because there probably is going to have to be a lot of re-instruction just in the fall alone, best case scenario, just because of the need to pivot so quickly and for us not being fully prepared. No one was fully prepared to take this on, but it is indeed our new norm now. Looking in the chat, Sarah Kempner asked, talking about the DC collaboratives, our members' distance learning database, if we had an update on the ability to track the use of the resources in the database. And we don't have anything new and definitive to share, but we do have some promising news to share. Trey, would you want to just give folks a little bit of an update?
Yeah, I don't really have a super definitive answer for you yet, but we do have our, one of the staff members that we work with, Anthony, who works in data, he believes that there is a way to track the clicks of people, how they're being redirected from our database to your database, but we have not sat down and discussed that yet because it's fairly new, and we're using Google Analytics and we don't have strong usage in that yet, but it's something that we're exploring, and they'll probably work on this week. So I can get back to you. I mean, the easiest, kind of like what I don't know if you're on the conversation a couple weeks ago, we were talking, but the easiest way to track how much usage your resource is getting is if you set up your own Google Analytics page for your database. And if that's something you're interested in setting up, I can show you how to do that so that you can see how your resources are being tracked via Google Analytics. It might just be easier for you to do it that way, for you to see that data on your end directly. Mm-hmm. But we are, working with Anthony to see how, we can also set that up from our end, but it might take a little bit of time. So it might be easier for you to just set it up on your own side.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that, Trey. And the cool thing about that is you'll get to see where folks are coming from to land onto your website. So actually you would see if they were coming from the DC Collaborative portal. So that's pretty cool because we can see that now. We can see through the distance learning database where folks are coming from, whether it's a direct market piece that we sent out, coming from DCPS. So if you are the person who oversees your website, great. Get yourself some Google Analytics. Trey can help you. If not, reach out to the person on your team that does it.
We'll still try to get that up and running though.
Oh, yeah.
I see that some of the resources linked to, I think in the case of Avalon, a link that's not their website, it directs to something with the
that's a good point.
film. So if that's the case, we're still trying to get that in. It has to be like embedded in the code or something in our website, but we're working on it.
Yeah.
If your link goes to something that's a PDF or something, like not your direct website, that would be something that we would need to do. But if it's going directly to a resource embedded in your own website, I would encourage you to set up a Google Analytics page for that specific resource, because then you can track how many people are going to it, how many people are spending time there, where they're coming from, where they're leaving and going to. It does give you a lot of information, but for us, we're very new to Google Analytics and we're figuring out kind of the ins and outs of it.
Yeah. Well, we're getting there and we'll have that information soon. So it's continuing to be something that's important for us because we know now as we've pivoted and provided a rapid response, we now need to see how this fully operationalized looks like. How can How can we start to look at measuring impact? What other resources are going to be necessary for us in the coming weeks, months, as we look into the new school year? What does that look like? This is all very important. I think that a resource that is in draft right now, and I don't know if I'm spilling the beans too much, but Mary, I had a good conversation with James on your team, who put together this really interesting mashup of something that our friends at Ingenuity have already created, and something that comes out of Philadelphia around mapping our DCPS schools' opportunity gaps in the arts. And this is something that the collaborative is very interested in, because as you all know, Tracey has been leading our members mapping work now for quite some time. I believe we've actually been mapping members for about 10 years. We have about 10 years worth of data, but certainly through our Any Given Child collective impact work, that data is really increasingly more important for us now. So we're pretty excited about what this looks like, and we want to partner with DCPS in building this. And this would be another data point for all of us as a community to share, and for members to utilize, to see where there are opportunity needs based on the school, or opportunity gaps, I should say. That's right. So Mary, do you want to just share a little bit about how that's coming together?
Sure. It's pretty exciting, because I think those of us who've seen what Ingenuity has done, especially for Chicago, and I guess to kind of give you a visual of what it looks like, they basically have plotted out every partner that's involved in schools, along with what schools are offering arts and music and theater or dance education. And they plot it out on a map where you can see, you know, Chicago is sort of like a kidney bean, I guess you could say. And you can see that the northern half of Chicago has abundance of offers, and then the southern half is empty. There's nothing really there, except for maybe a couple of dots on the map showing that they are offering these things. And of course, the northern half is the more wealthy, affluent side. The southern half is the farthest from access in a variety of ways. And so we love this idea because it's such powerful information. Well, unfortunately, it's what, a $30,000 cost to do that, which was always that sounds great, but that $30,000 could go somewhere else. Right. And so thankfully, we have people like Tracey and James on our teams that are incredibly intelligent and able to just sort of put all this together and make it work. The part that actually makes it really difficult is just simply getting, you know, all the legal minds to sign off on that this is okay to have shared information like this, right? So we are looking at school by school, what partners are involved with at what schools, how many minutes of arts education are students receiving, do they have supplies, do they even have an art room, or is it art on the cart, do they have instruments, or is it just simply a music theory class, all of those things. And then looking at sort of a badge type system that would say, where are the schools that are farthest from access to arts education, and then those that are getting a really high level. So mapping that out. And then also it would be really beneficial in a multitude of ways in looking at, you know, when you're writing a grant and you want to see the schools that need the most, you can easily pull from that. And David Markey could look at that and say, well, Turner Elementary has nothing available, yet everything around them does. Why are we not going to Turner Elementary? And how do we pull partners that could specifically look at helping those students? So it could work for so many people in a variety of ways. One of the things that's sort of throwing a little bit of a wrench in our system is that we are anticipating that a lot of what partners are able to offer is going to change between this year and next. We hope it won't, but it probably will, just looking at the course of the economy and that sort of thing. So we are almost starting fresh again. Once we get this up and going, it's going to have to almost be revamped all over again. But we're really excited that it could answer so many questions and provide so many supports for everybody.
Yeah, indeed. It's very exciting. And for those of you that know and had seen over the years our geolocated data through the member mapping project of the collaborative, when you would look at that DC map, you would see pins of where all of the activities were. Often that was based on where the cultural institutions were, but we also would pin the schools that were provided opportunity. But you do see where the gaps are, and we've worked through an equity lens, as you know, with our field trip offerings that we help to coordinate to shift that so that there are more resources put into specific neighborhoods and schools. That said, the data visualization work that we want to move forward with, that is that large $250,000 investment that we've been pitching this past year to DC Council, is it through our Any Given Child work, is this very work that Mary's talking about, that James started to pull together from the school-facing side. So we have the work from the member-facing side. We have this other piece that James has already started to map out, and we are getting much closer to being able to do just this. We're also very hopeful that very soon we'll hear if we have received funding to help move some of this work forward. Now, we do have a very large ask that we were putting forward this fiscal year, but for next fiscal year. But given all of the uncertainty with the economy and budgets, we're not sure where that will land. But there may be some ways that we can apply for other dollars and resources in the future to build all of this. So to work in partnership with DCPS and what James has started, to take what the DC Collaborative has already done, to take the data that we've already started to extract through our Any Given Child work, and to work with the out of school time office, Learn 24, so that we are seeing the full landscape and picture of both in school, out of school time, and knowing that we also will start firstly with DCPS, because that's where we can start the work. And of course, we do care about our charters as well, and we do have some data there too, but we will start with DCPS initially. So fingers crossed that we may have some funding updates that we can share soon, and certainly we'll be continuing to look for more funding opportunities to work on this. But it was really exciting to see what James had started to pull together. It looked really good. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It looks like there's some conversation going on in the chat about books for families, and I think this is very interesting. If Sylvia or Amber want to just share some of what you're discussing in the chat with the group.
Mm-hmm. Hi, everybody. It's always so wonderful to start the week here. Thank you again, Collaborative and Mary and David. I just followed up on what Kent had suggested. It would be wonderful to have books for children to read, but then I think very often in books that I read in the classes that I have families together, parents and children, of how those books have just something that it's soothing for the heart and for the mind, and that puts you in the right frame of mind. And as the librarian always just says constantly, I read books to know that I'm not alone. And I do find that in order for the parents to really be there for the children, sometimes they just need to hear, even if they're reading out loud books to their children, they are thoughts that somebody else had put in words and in pictures so well. And I do find that simple books for children can offer parents, I witnessed that, and families as a whole, siblings as well, with great emotional support. So.
Mm-hmm. Thanks for sharing that. And also, Linda, thanks for looks like you also were talking about first books. Amber, you talked about students who are blind or print disabled, and what the NLS, National Library Service, offers. I think that that's a great resource. We certainly can keep that in mind when we look at supplemental opportunity too. But access to books is such an important piece. I see DC Library, Ellen, I don't know if she's on the chat today. No, not today, okay. We'll have more to share. I know Clarissa is going to, from our team, is going to be reaching out to DC public libraries to talk about more ways that we can get more of our community's cultural education, arts and humanities learning opportunities out, since the libraries are now more than ever are truly going to be those educational hubs in communities. And what they're already doing right now in pivoting online, it has been pretty remarkable too. Just so everyone knows, any student has free access through their DC-1, is that what they still call them? Their transportation cards, right? So that's very important, and I know that's something that a lot of families rely upon if they have the technology again. But also, once the doors can reopen, these libraries are going to be increasingly more important community hubs, and might be other places that we can help get students to and engaged in with some of our programming offerings for those of us that don't have homes, walls. We're not a brick and mortars operations, but we have education programs. So that's something for us to keep in mind.
I also wanted just to add on something I didn't say, talking about books is still not going very far, of how books really support all of the arts, and how all of arts, performing, visual, can take those books and stories just to develop, further in. I think we can't forget that either.
Mm-hmm. Indeed. Just to pivot a little, because I know we're going to be wrapping up soon here, and I want to make sure that everyone has been able to share news or ask any questions of David and of Mary, our Monday guests, our Monday family members. One of the things that we've been thinking a lot at the collaborative is the utilization of this database that we created that represents all of your offerings, all of our members and cultural institutions, educational offerings. And as you all are thinking and working on your pivoting, what we can provide in virtual learning. And what we need to look at now is actually how that work is being utilized. Measuring impact, again, is going to be hard to start, but how we can highlight, feature, showcase some of these great opportunities that already are there. And I know, Mary, DCPS Arts is having a town hall every other week, is that right? For educators. And the DC Collaborative team will always be at these meetings. Initially, we're there to help share out that this resource, what is in the resource. But now what we want to be able to do is to highlight and help teachers make those connections, identifying those curricular connections. So that's something, if anyone has some ideas or thoughts they'd like to share, we're going to now start to ask our friends at DCPS, and we'll also reach out to our key communicators and teachers that are in our contacts to share who's been using the database and how they're incorporating it into their lessons and learning. Mary, do you have anything that you know of that you can share about that, or just some ideas as we advance that forward?
I can see that as we are building out the lessons, or as we are approaching the next week of unit, and we know that there's a partner who has something that is related, even if it didn't wind up in our videos or directly in our curriculum, that would be a wonderful thing to have maybe somebody come on and talk about what they could offer to support. I think especially as we're going into basically month 2 and possibly 3 of distance learning, that we're going to have to find new ways to engage the students to keep them going. We are hearing from some teachers that they're getting calls or emails from parents saying, why should I bother doing this? If this is not being graded, why am I doing this? As a parent and educator, I obviously have thoughts on that, but we're not going to tell parents how to parent their children, right? And there is a very large group basically protesting that education is happening right now, and saying that children should allowed to just be at home and deal with the trauma that they're going through. And on one hand, I kind of agree with that, but on the other hand, I'm sorry, we're getting on a tangent, but but I would love to see some partners help out. We would just need to be as strategic as possible, because we have shortened these town halls from 1 hour to half an hour, because teachers are just having so many meetings every day. So having to, respect their time.
Yeah, indeed. Well, the collaborative can certainly make some recommendations, and between Trey and Clarissa, we can find some ways to share out, and then to help direct teachers to the database, so that while they're still working on that planning, especially this next week. Someone just asked a reminder when the town halls are held. They're held every other week on Fridays. Mary, have you changed the time?
Yes, we're going to have them in the afternoon. However, just so you know, they're not open to the public. That, think of it as more of like a team meeting more than anything. So it would be just like one partner that we would invite for a specific reason to come on.
Yeah. I think, and then the collaborative will always be there just to be as a resource to help teachers that may have questions about what our community of arts and humanities education institutions and teaching artists can help to provide and direct people to that portal. We had a wonderful conversation with our friends from Pulitzer Center this last week, and it was a really wonderful showcase of how Everyday DC came into being, and that is now a program that's widely used through DCPS. And this comes out of the Pulitzer Center, and Fareed did a really nice job in walking us through. I felt like I was having a PD, which was so terrific. And we'll have more of those probably during our Thursdays as we move forward. But the Everyday DC program, I think, is a great one to feature for those. It's a good reinforcement for educators that have utilized it, and maybe ways that it can expand, especially with families. That might be one to consider. But we do have over 100 unique programs now, thanks to you all, in that portal, in that database. So we'll continue to work on that. Mary just shared a great link on the exhibit, which, yes, this exhibition, is it still at Pepco? Did you just they locked the door and it's in there? Yeah. It's such a great program, and there is an exhibition that is currently at Pepco. You can't see it at Pepco, but you can take a look at this blog post, which talks a lot about what a great program it is. And that's a really feel-good program that connects students to their community. And I think that right now that's something that we all need to think a lot about as we are working with our parent friends who are needing to homeschool, and whatever our summer and end of school year are going to look like. Is there anything else folks would like to ask Mary or David, or would like to share out? No? Anything from the collaborative team that we forgot to share today? No? Really? Okay, that's okay. It's a good thing to end meetings a little early sometimes, isn't it? So there we go. Well, thank you, David, so very much for joining us every Monday. Yay. And thank you for everything you're doing at the commission. We know you're doing the job. You normally do the job of 3, 5, 10 people. Now it's like 20. And we appreciate everything that you're doing there and for your leadership and having someone who gets and understands education, leading the grant making at the commission is significant for us. So thank you. And Mary, thanks again for everything you're doing and your team. We can't even imagine DCPS not having your team in place. And we want to do everything we can to ensure that you are there and you are supported. So just keep in touch with us, and we'll have these Mondays with each other, but know that our work continues throughout the week. So Tracey, what's on deck for tomorrow? What can people tune into for tomorrow's Zoom chat?
Tomorrow, a teaching artist, his name is Uncle Devin Walker, Devin Show. He's presenting more about the production quality behind distance learning, and he's bringing on a colleague from Middle C Music in DC, who's also shifted to all their lessons online. So really just about like the technology and keeping the quality of the program up. So it'd be great if you could join us tomorrow.
Yeah, Uncle Devin is awesome. Also, you guys may know that Devin was just recently, he switched his radio stations, and now he's running a program on PFW, which is really exciting. And he is going to do a lot of promotion of the great education programs that we're all providing. So be sure to tune in tomorrow's Zoom chat. Also, affordable ways to get yourself up and running in the virtual space. Devin is doing all the research for you. So I think that's going to be a really informative conversation tomorrow. I, for one, am looking for a small projector, but that's for a personal art project. That's an aside. But I think that it's important for us to share what we learn as we're going through this process and to truly collaborate. So we appreciate Uncle Devin and him. Please tune in tomorrow at 11. Okay, well, thank you, everyone. Everyone be well and have a great day. And we'll look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Thanks again. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.